show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Ferlin, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show, and I'll get to the game in a minute. But I just got to say, this is one of the reasons why you should come down for the live show. The people here having an absolutely great time. Checking out, we had some great food, some great beer. And what I like most about this is some of the people here got to see exactly what Renny has to put up with behind the scenes when it comes to dealing with Ken. We had a real life wake up moment with Kenny. We had a real life mute your mic moment with Ken. We spent 5 minutes here trying to figure out the audio because we needed Ken's mic to be muted, and I would mute it, and then we would go to test it, and Ken would turn it back on. And we played this who's on first game for about 5 minutes before finally the crowd had to yell, "Mute your mic, Ken." And that's where we find ourselves right now. We got it figured out. Technical difficulties are on brand. It only cost us 5 minutes. So I think we're starting out pretty good today compared to what we usually do here. So speaking of pretty good game for the Winnipeg Jets here. I've been a big proponent. I've said this for a long time. People know I can't stand these games where the Jets come out and they get outshot 13-2, 13-3, and they get one token goal, and then everyone thinks everything's okay. I've hated that. I've wanted to see the Jets get to a point where they can play a game where they get out, they outscore their opponent, they outwork their opponent. They basically, win the game by every measure. That's what I've been waiting to see from this team, because I think this team is capable of that. And I get frustrated when you see the opposite, a team that doesn't seem to be overly invested and is trying to get into a game through opportunistic scoring and so on and so forth. Now, I have to say, I felt a little weird about it the last little while because they were doing that and they weren't winning. And I kind of felt like I was saying, this is what they need to do, and they do it. And now they were having a worse record doing that than when they were winning. I've thought the worm was going to turn on this one at some point, and it feels tonight like maybe that was the moment. Vastly important game against the Nashville Predators. They went out, got the start I think you would have expected, other than getting scored on just their second goal of the game. I thought it was hilarious. Someone in the chat room was saying, all we need is for Hellebuck to make the first stop and everything's going to be okay. And then he allowed a goal on his second stop. Nervous group in here, no doubt. But I like the way the Jets kept pushing. I like the way they took it into the third period. I like the way they tied this game up. I thought, from what we've seen from this Winnipeg Jets team over the last little while, the fact that Nashville came out right away afterwards and had that second goal that they scored after the Jets tied it up. I thought that was a real backbreaker moment in that game. I got to say, the Jets stepped up to the plate. Great performances by a number of different people. I love getting my MVP plugs in there. This is a game that Josh Morrissey, I take a look at him all over again, walks up with 2 primary assists, makes it happen. There's subtleties to what he did in those plays there, especially on the Adam Lowry goal we're going to have to get into. But this is a game where the Jets fought bad luck, bad bounces, hopping pucks left, right, and center, a little bit of their own overpassing instincts, which I heard that word overpassing was overused here tonight. And to be honest with you, I don't think that word could be overused. It was a good assessment of what we were seeing. But in the end, the Winnipeg Jets pulled out a massive victory. You know how I feel. I'm not worried about the Winnipeg Jets missing the playoffs. I'm even less worried about them missing the playoffs after a game like this tonight. I think they're in a really good spot after this. That's what I walk away from with this game. That's my take. But we got to get the main man's take on this. Time to bring in the guy with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny.
Whoa!
Kenny, I don't remember getting a round of cheers when I came into the show here. It was actually very muted in here when I started the show, but
Yeah, I wonder why.
I think it has a little bit to do with you and a lot to do with Tristan Rivers' music, and I got to tell a little bit of a Tristan Rivers story here. This podcast is, as always, brought to you by the great people at Vittorio Rossi and Lou Ferlin, TransCanada Brewing, Home Field, everybody, the Cambrian Credit Union. But this show truly today is brought to you by Tristan Rivers, not because his music rocks, but he absolutely made our audio happen for us. And I just wanted to tell this story. At some point, we figured this out earlier, only to have it break down last minute. Of course, that's how it goes. But Ken turned to me at some point, and we got the microphones working, and he said, "We figured it out, buddy." And I was like, "You and I did nothing, Ken. That was all Tristan." And that is a pretty good description of our podcast. It is all Tristan Rivers with a little bit of a contribution by Kenny and Renny. That's a good way to put it, I think. Ken, what do you think of the game here tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, fantastic atmosphere, and we're thankful for everyone who made the trip down to TransCanada Brewing. Absolutely fantastic environment. People were fired up, and well, if you want cheers, Sean, maybe you should do a better job on that end.
Whoa! So people know Ken is just on the other side of the table from me. He's not that far from me, hopping over this table if he wants to keep up that kind of tone in the show. Get to the game, Ken. Get to the game.
Sure, no problem at all. Well, lots of things happening. Neil Pionk, we know he's had a bit of a rough season at times, and there he is getting the overtime winner, getting some fans back in his corner. Pierre-Luc Dubois, we know there was lots of talk this week, and people maybe getting a little bit out of their comfort zone when it comes to suggestions about what was happening behind the scenes, but he was cleared medically and was ready to roll, and there he was setting up the overtime winner after nearly ending it in regulation. We were having a little bit of a debate as to whether that was a good back check or a stick on the hands. It was kind of debatable. Not quite sure where we landed on there. I thought in real time it looked like a really good back check, but it was very close. But regardless, he made a chance. He got a chance in overtime and did the job by winning the draw and getting things going north. For the Jets, they stuck to their process, just like we talked about the other day, Sean, and they were rewarded eventually. It wasn't their best game, but they did a lot of things well.
Yeah,
Jeff Kabilas.
Kenny was trying for the primary assist. He wasn't even on the ice, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Oh boy, yes, it's good. We love the interaction, and that will not deter the intensity here, and it's no problem. Jeff was at wrestling this week, so we know he's fired up to be poking the bear, and we love to see it. We love to see the intensity. Jets played really well, Sean. We know that the complementary scoring has been a big storyline. Adam Lowry coming through with we know it's his second goal in 42 games, but not many bigger than that one for Adam, winning the draw back to Josh Morrissey, and then getting to the blue paint. That's something we talked about the Jets not doing enough of late, and when the Jets needed it, there he was to deliver a big goal and get the game to overtime. And we've been talking at a few tables here today about Nikolai Ehlers needing to get himself going and shooting a bit more, and there was a direct play, and he absolutely blew a clapper past UC Saros for another important goal, even though the Jets gave one up on the ensuing shift. But for him, that was something that needed to get done. He's been skating a little bit better of late, and the Jets are going to need him to be one of their best and most impactful forwards down the stretch. And today he was able to do that. Rick Bowness mixing up the top six a little bit. We're not really too surprised with how that sorted itself out, but we'll see how things go as the trip continues. On defense, Morrissey absolutely outstanding again. No surprise there. And Hellebuck getting the job done between the pipes. So, the debate continues. Lots of MVP chants during the game for both of those guys.
Oh, wait a minute.
Hang on a second. Just because you didn't hear
this history, ladies and gentlemen.
Just because you didn't hear the MVP chants for Hellebuck doesn't mean they weren't happening.
Ken is taking advantage of the fact that, and this is a true story, I do have hearing loss. I'm half deaf, and I think he's making fun of my disability here, ladies and gentlemen, because I can tell you right now, I heard the Morrissey chants. This is not a game I don't think that you would hang up in the Picasso, the wide world of artistic contributions we've seen over the years from Connor Hellebuck. I don't think that this is one of those games. This is one of those ones that clearly, I think, if you're taking a look at the scales of justice that are tipping in one or the other direction in this argument. This is most definitely a Josh Morrissey contribution for MVP game. If we look back on if we start going from game to game and taking a look at this, and I think that this just goes right along with what we've seen from him, and to me strengthens my argument is the idea that this is another game where the Jets just can't seem to figure things out. And in the third period, when they need it pulled out of the fire, Josh Morrissey is right there. I want to get to the Lowry goal. Two things. This is a phenomenal effort by both these players. If you take a look at how hard Adam Lowry fights to win this draw, he's lying down. He's got a guy leaning down on him. He wins the puck back to the point and then beats his guy to the net by getting up. Like, this is one of those drills where your coaches have you lie down on the ice and then blow the whistle, and it's whoever gets up first and wins that puck battle. This is Adam Lowry, straight up effort, beating his guy to the net. But the thing about this play, the subtlety of this play is Josh Morrissey, and when he releases the puck to the net, he waits for the traffic to get there. He allows the play to develop. This isn't just him putting the puck right on the net, just trying to get something to happen. He times it so it's getting there at the same time that Adam Lowry's stick is getting there. And what that means is he's not only having a look around the ice, assessing where the defenseman is, in case he wants to go D to D, whether he wants to throw it down low, he's watching where Adam Lowry is, where he is getting up, where he is at that space and time, and gets it to the net at the perfect time. This is what you needed to do on this night to beat UC Saros, who was absolutely phenomenal, which kind of brings me to the other assist that he had on the first goal. The reason why Nick Ehlers has as much time as he does in that situation is a couple things. One, he does a really good job of hiding in the weeds, right? Whenever you see a player kind of skate to the boards and stop along the boards, you don't see this happen often. And if a player is doing it, it's a couple things. He's either really lazy or he's trying to get lost in the play. He gets lost, and Josh Morrissey sees that happen, picks up the puck, skates it in the opposite direction, gets everybody in the Nashville Predators moving towards their left, and then floats a saucer pass backhand against the grain to the right side of the ice. And all of a sudden, Nick Ehlers has all the time in the world. His defender is caught in no man's land. If anyone's played hockey before, they know if there's too much space between you as a defenseman and the forward, if you skate straight at the guy, he's just going to make a move and go right by you. You're kind of caught in no man's land. He took all the ice that he needed to keep that shooting lane open, used that defenseman as a screen, and blew that puck past him. This is a great play by Nick Ehlers once he gets an opportunity, but the opportunity exists because the chess master, Josh Morrissey, in this situation played chess and moved every player on the ice into a position to give Nick Ehlers all the room in the world. This is just a great performance by Josh Morrissey, and another example of him coming to the forefront when the Jets need him most in that moment in time.
Yep.
There it is. There it is. Little Hulk Hogan action.
Yeah, there you
we
go.
Like
there
it.
You go.
We like it.
Incredible game for Morrissey the other night. Almost 30 minutes today, 29 and change. Josh is really elevating his game when his team really needs him. Sean, we got to do a reversal here. I have this little bit of insight from the post game here, so I want to go to We've Got You Covered, and then we'll go to flip the order here. This is very rare, but since we're at TCB, I think we should go. We've Got You Covered first, and then we'll dig into the Lamplighter. Just got finished with the interviews, and
all of you follow along. We want to hear your Got You Covereds as well, everybody. So let's hear them.
So here on the post-game interview, Jeff Hamilton had asked Adam Lowry about the face-offs and what's been going on lately, and Adam was very unhappy with how things went against the Bruins. So he made a phone call to Todd Woodcroft, the former Jets skills coach, and between Thursday and Saturday afternoon, those two talked a little bit. I don't know if there was any video involved, but Adam talked about getting back to the basics, got a couple of tips from Todd, who worked really closely in terms of the face-off. So for me, the phone call to Todd Woodcroft, he's getting the We've Got You Covered, even though he's no longer part of the Jets coaching staff. He's still out there helping the Jets players when they reach out. He's now the University of Vermont head coach, still keeps a keen eye on the Jets, and obviously his ability to get Adam Lowry back on track helped him not only win an important faceoff, but get an important goal and essentially help the Jets win the game. So going a little bit off the board with the "we've got you covered," and we're giving it to former Jets assistant coach Todd Woodcroft for his contribution to the Adam Lowry goal, even though he wasn't in the building.
Well, sometimes,
Okay, hang on.
I keep doing the wrong. Oh, sometimes when you are going off the board like that, Ken, the reason it gets on the board is because it's actually been happening for a long time, and that's what's been happening in this situation. One of the things we know is Todd Woodcroft stays in very close contact with a lot of the players on the Winnipeg Jets. It's one of those behind-the-scene things that doesn't necessarily come out, but he spends a lot of time talking with these guys, and you have to think about the relationship that a coach has with his players that is so strong that he can leave and a coaching staff can entirely change over. And there's still a little bit of this idea of getting on your phone after a game where you're frustrated and saying, Todd, I'm lost. I need some help. What can you do for me here? Todd Woodcroft is a great guy. I did a little bit of covering Jay Woodcroft as well recently, the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. This is a hockey family full of not just brilliantly smart men, but great people. And the fact that the relationship that that Todd continues to have with a lot of the Jets players, the fact that it continues tells you everything you need to know about how much these players felt like they were cared for by this guy, and that they still continue to reach out to him. This is a blast from the past, reaching out and helping the Jets on a night like this. And Ken, I think, is an absolutely great example of the "we've got you covered" play of the game, brought to you by the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group. Hey, you went there. It's time to go for the lamplighter. Hey, while you're here, you can let us know if you want to shout it out. Feel free. Anything you can do to distract Ken, I am all for. What do you got, Ken?
Both goals are pretty during regulation, but the only goal that really matters to the Jets is the one that got them the extra point. So today it is the Neil Pionk goal. We know it's been a tough go at times for Pionk, and we know on the second goal he kind of went for a bit of a tumble in front of the net, but when it mattered and when the Jets needed the extra point, he was able to get to the net and deposit that pass from Pierre-Luc Dubois. So for me, it's the Neil Pionk goal, but in terms of prettiness, it's the Ehlers slapper, absolutely beautiful bar down. In terms of doing what the Jets need to do to score when it matters most, it's the Lowry goal, but ultimately it's the Neil Pionk GWG 55 seconds into overtime. That is my choice for today's lamplighter, and there's quite a few lamplighters being distributed this afternoon, I believe.
No doubt, handing them out. Now, I can't remember. I think I was sitting beside Jeff Kabilis. I was up at the bar, but when that face-off happened, I took a look at the mismatch that was on the ice. And to be honest, it's a mismatch the entire game. That Nashville Predators team is a little bit of an AHL team. Like, let's be honest, if you take a look at what they've got. But the first line goes out and they've got Duchesne on the ice, and they had Tyson Barrie in overtime. So you've got, three pretty good players on each side of the docket. That second opportunity they had when Pierre-Luc Dubois goes out on the ice alongside Pionk. This was very good top-end NHLers against some guys who are, usually would not find themselves in that situation. I don't know how many teams that trio that was out on the ice for the Nashville Predators would make it on overtime. If they played for the Jets, there would never be a sniff of overtime ice for those three players. And I remember when they dropped the puck, I'd said, this is one of these times the Jets need to take advantage. The fact that they went out and they did, I thought was very aware and situational. I think the very obvious play of that is when PLD grabs the puck, has it on the right side boards, and just keeps the puck and skates over and around a guy, just looks him off, crosses the two defensemen over, confuses them to the point that one falls and doesn't get Pierre-Luc Dubois, and the other guy doesn't get Neil Pionk going to the net. And it's one of those situations where every once in a while you'll deke a guy out to the point that you'll turn him into a pretzel, right? Like, you'll get his body going in the opposite direction. That's how you know you really, really deked a guy out. Well, Pierre-Luc Dubois did that with two guys, basically ran them into each other. They lost who they were supposed to be covering on the ice. This is Pierre-Luc Dubois kind of taking this over. Neil Pionk, right place at the right time. You got to give credit to guys who see an opening, an area of ice that has been vacated by the players who are supposed to be covering it. So he goes to the right spot. But this play is all Pierre-Luc Dubois. And the Jets, I'm sure, are very happy after tonight that he's back in the lineup. Ken, great pick for the Lamplighter. I'm going to say this. The Lamplighter for me was the reaction tonight from this crowd. How much fun was it after those first two periods of frustration? And I could just feel in this room, I was like, if this team gets shut out for the second straight game, these people are going to riot. Like, I'm going to sneak out the back door. I'm going to put Ken and use him as a human shield, and I'm going to get out of here. But boy, oh boy, when those two goals are scored to tie the game up, it was such an awesome atmosphere in here. And same thing when they scored to win it in overtime. Lamplighter for me is all of you and the great job you did here tonight. Excellent stuff. Give yourselves a round of applause, no doubt. Anyways, hey, I want to say
it would seem like a good time to promote next Saturday's show as well.
I think it would be. We'll get to that. First, I just have to say we appreciate you sharing your Lamplighters. More of you should do so, because if you do, you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. And plenty of people here tonight to attest that they are both frosty and delicious. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to hand one out, you should come on down here and join us all at 1290 Kenniston. Join us in the tap room at Transcanada Brewing Company. Great pizza, as everyone here knows. Great appies, great salads, great beer. So many different kinds of beer. Speaking of beer, I got to show this off because I've been bragging about how much I love the cold IPAs on the show. Well, they've branded them now. You got to come try this out, everybody. It is their Mountaineer Cold IPA. I'm going to tell you this for what it's worth. Renny drinks a lot of beer, so he knows what he's talking about. And this is really, really great IPA. I love this stuff. So come on down, check this all out. And before we shut this down and talk about next week, I got to say that Tim Bigelow, you are the winner of the Lamplighter from last week. Tim Bigelow. And you need to get a hold of me, direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, which I believe is Tim Bigelow, and your email address, which I believe we have, but you should send it to me anyway. And you too will have your very own frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. Congratulations, Tim Bigelow. And the last thing I will say to the people in the room, if you enjoyed yourself, we'd love to have you back. If you can make it back next week, if you'd like to make it back next week, you can go scan the QR code on the bar right over there. It'll take you to where you need to buy tickets. For those of you at home who are missing out, and let me tell you, you are most definitely missing out. Here's the QR code for next week. You just flash that with your camera. That will take you to where you need to go to buy tickets. I think Ken will also throw
I don't have my computer.
Ken doesn't have his computer. We're kind of, anyways, there's your QR code. We'll get back to that. Great stuff. I want to give a shout out to Vittorio Rossi as well. We're kind of in the Vittorio Rossi neighborhood, Ken. Both of us not looking to Vittorio Rossi-esque, I have to say, but I love the wake up shirt. I was cold last night when I was doing the audio setup here, so I wore a sweater to take care of it, and now I'm feeling the heat. I don't know if it's because when I usually give bad takes, I've got a whole bunch of space to save me from the people. But there's like too many people in this room and too many potential flying objects for me. So maybe I'm feeling the heat. Maybe it could be minus 20 in here. I think I'd be sweating in the situation I'm in here. But I got to tell you, when we are looking our best, Ken, I think we do a pretty good job of it. And I think it's for one reason only. We've got the best guy in the business in Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi. If you want to look like Kenny and Renny, head on down to Corridon Avenue. See the boys at Vittorio Rossi. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie or one of the boys. They will take care of you and do you up right. Okay, Ken, I'm going to let you, this is a Ken gets to choose. This is a choose your own adventure. What stood out to you most that you would like to talk to about this game?
Well, mostly, Josh Morrissey, probably another big star game for him at a time where his team has needed him most. Once again, Josh Morrissey looking very sharp. I was very curious to see how the Jets would respond. We know the heat was being turned up on them, Sean. We know that Rick Bowness He was asked about it again by Jeff Hamilton. Why the shakeup in the top 6? We had a very healthy debate about this the other day, and turns out that those top 2 lines, both in their newly configured models, each got an important goal in the game. So, what do you think of the lines? Maybe let's start there. I'm sorry to throw this back at you.
No, not at all.
They just posted my column, and I want to get it into the chat.
Listen, I'll carry this. It's okay. I can
problem.
carry
Just
this
like
if
normal.
you don't need me
Just
to.
like normal, buddy. Just like normal.
So we had that big conversation about lines during the last or 2 shows ago, and it that blew up for me. A lot of people messaged me, and I think people were really talking about that and resonating. Clearly, it resonated because I know this was one of my favorite parts of the night here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how many people saw it, but when Adam Lowry scored, Ken very much was saying 4th line center, because of the disagreement we'd had before.
It is what
and
I was
someone
saying.
in the room had said, I totally agree with Ken. He's the 4th line center. And I was like, you don't get it. Ken's mocking that idea. And then he's like, okay, no, you're wrong, Ken. It was just, I loved how people just switched like that in that moment. I had talked about how they could play with these lines. And in the end, I had suggested that they won't, that they would very simply take Pierre-Luc Dubois, put him in the 2nd line role, move Ehlers up, move Connor down to that line, and continue on as they were. That's what we saw here tonight. That's what we expected. I still would love to see a little bit of a more creative look at this taken, especially on a night where, yes, they're able to score 2 goals by the time it's all said and done. It's their 3rd line that gets them a goal on that night. Guys like Kyle Connor are still not necessarily feeling it. I think that if you're able to stack 3 scoring lines, it opens up more possibilities of who you can match people against. And when you need to get players going, you can get them against lesser. But I digress. I do have to say, I knew the direction it was going to go into. I liked what I saw from Nick Ehlers. Pierre-Luc Dubois, someone in the crowd had said it to me earlier on. They about two periods into the game, someone had said, I have not noticed him the entire state of the game. Now, some of that will have to do that a lot of us are focused a little bit more on the beers in our hands and the food on our plate. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. The focus is not razor sharp at these things. But I've got time for that. Yourself. I've got time. I've got time for that. But it'll take some time. It'll take some time to see Pierre-Luc Dubois at the top of his game. But I do think what we saw when you get those 2 lines going together is there was a lot of overpassing in this game. It was said in the room time and time again, but how many times did we see, a pass rather than a shot, pucks jumping over sticks? There we go. I love it. See, I'm glad people. Jeff Kabili says Kenny is capital high maintenance, witnessing it firsthand. I'm glad.
Ask anyone.
Glad people are seeing what I have to put up with behind the scenes here. But overpassing. This was a night of overpassing, I thought. Often. So many situations, and a lot of them looked nice. And you know what? If a couple of them would have gone in the back of the net, maybe we'd be talking a different story. Maybe we'd be sitting here talking about, wow, the Jets have their mojo back, and they're getting these passes and backdoor tap-ins and all that kind of stuff. And let's be honest, the Nashville Predators are not the kind of team that you should be able to generate a ton of those chances against. They're very good defensively. But I contend the reason why they finally got to UC Soros is because they went to the net. Nick Ehlers' goal is using a screen to get a shot that UC Soros can't see. It's the perfect shot. Maybe he would have beat him anyways. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure if I like his chances of beating him when he doesn't have that guy screening the goaltender, because UC Soros is just that good. Second scenario, you get Adam Lowry, beats his guy to the front of the net, creates some havoc, a little bit of chaos before the puck gets there on a shot from Josh Morrissey, picks it up, puts it in the back of the net. This was the only way that you were beating UC Soros on this night. You either needed to take his eyes away or get a backdoor tap in or something like that. The lines, I take a look at them, and I think these are guys who are still trying a specific kind of offense. And I just don't know why. We asked Rick Bowness this question. I thought it was a fascinating answer. There's so much evidence over the year to suggest the best thing for them to do is just get guys to the front of the net, get the puck there and capitalize on it. And yet they seem to want to go back to this overpassing nature time and time again. And Ken, I'm at the stage where I just think it's who they are. It can't be coached out of them. It can't be beaten out of them. And I don't know what you do at this stage. Do you embrace it? Because I do think if they get into a situation like this and try to pass, 3 passes in tight to tap it in the back door, maybe it works on a night like tonight. I don't think it's working in the playoffs.
No, for sure. And even Rick Bonus, here's a classic right out of the gate here to a question. We played well enough to win that game in regulation, but give their goaltender credit. Another goalie we made look pretty good.
Yes. Yeah.
He was outstanding, but we were pretty happy with our overall team game. So anyways, it was one of those situations where it was kind of interesting where Rick Bonus it was almost, Sean, almost like more relief than joy at the end of that game, right? Like, don't you think? I mean, this was a team that
in this room for sure. I mean, there was joy, but it was very relieved joy. Yeah.
I mean, even for the Jets too, it sort of sounded that way in terms of how they handled their post-game interviews. And when there's so much tension around the team, and when they're not getting those results, 2 wins in 6 games, and when a team is within 3 points of you and another 4 with 3 in hand, it's going to be nervous. So the fact they were able to stick with it and not kind of abandon ship, I think says a lot about maybe how the Jets are going to handle the weekend. Now they've got an interesting game on the weekend on Sunday where they're going to face the mighty St. Louis Blues.
Mighty.
And Jordan Bennington will not be there either. So it should be an interesting tilt there. But it's another team who is a seller, but we've seen the complete opposite. The Blues have fallen right off the map, whereas Nashville has found a way to hang around. So I think it was important for the Jets to obviously win this game, not just for the standings boost that they needed, but for their own confidence level. Because when you don't get rewarded when you're playing, quote unquote, the right way, now you start, overpassing. And maybe, we were joking about it here. I mean, the play for Stenlund 2-on-1, like that's a tap in.
Yeah.
But it either hits the wrong part of the blade or that is a great example, Sean, of when people say you're squeezing your stick.
Yeah.
No better example, right? When you're feeling good and maybe when it's game 12, that's in the back of the net with ease. Instead, and again, remember Stenlund, he had that other chance where his stick broke in half. And I think it was against Philly and the shot went wide. So when you're feeling tension, those sorts of things happen, but Jets stuck with it and kind of found a way. Are the lines perfect the way they are? We don't know yet, but this is the problem. The Jets haven't had a lot of continuity, and when they've been together, there have been long stretches where guys have been struggling. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they stick with these lines for a little bit longer. I think it was smart to put Kyle Connor. I mean, we know he didn't have his breakout game today. I liked his game last game, probably better than today. But we know they've had success together. So I think it makes sense to have them together. How the rest of the pieces of the puzzle continue to sort of fit together as we move along, I'll be curious to see Niederreiter and Scheifele, we know they've had chemistry. Obviously, Ehlers scores today. It's an important goal. But ultimately, we'll see how things play out because the Jets are still kind of looking for answers.
I got it.
Very convenient for Grayson to walk in front of you and leave the room after sending a comment.
This is what I love about this. Grayson kind of just walked by right before I saw this, and he kind of gave me the eye. He gave me a little bit of the here he is. He gave me a little bit of the what's up, Renny. And then I'm scrolling through and I see that he's trash talking to me up here. I love it. I love the face-to-face trash talk. He looks good with the flow. Oh, it's trash talk. We know Grayson, if you guys remember, the very roots of the Kenny and Renny show started on Instagram, and Grayson said that he was going to break my ankles out on the ice one time when we played. I'm still waiting to get out on the rink with Grayson here. Good kid. This is by the way, this is Grayson. Grayson's got the good flow going on. Grayson had a great year in hockey. I think Grayson, do I got the stats right? 51 points in 14 games. Attaboy. Grayson did up, and he was invited to the Sports Illustrated Prospects Camp in Toronto. Is that what's going on? So good job. And on top of all that, it's his second time at one of the 3 parties. So Grayson,
good attendance, gold star.
Good attendance. Good job. He fit it in that entire time. I want to go back to the comments that you were talking about, Rick Bonus. It was interesting because you get this sense of how he talks about the Jets, that on one hand, he's realizing there may be a little bit of a fragile team. So last game against the Bruins, he was talking about them and he was saying, no, this is a good game and we're right there and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd said to him, well, because Swayman looked great in that last game, but I also didn't think Swayman was very challenged, right? Like he never really looked confused at any point. He looked, and a confident looking goal. You show me a confident looking goaltender, I'll show you an opposition that's not going to the front of the net, right? That's my take on it. And I'd asked Rick Bowness about that, and he'd gone from being like, we could have won the game and we had opportunities and we had this and we had that. And I said, well, did you make life difficult enough on the opposing goaltender? And he was like, no, not at all, right? So you're getting this thing with Rick Bowness where he's like, he realizes it's a fragile team and he needs to talk them up enough and say, we're doing enough good things. We're getting the shots. We're getting the opportunities. Let's focus on the positives. But Rick Bowness has that bit of truth serum to him that if you ask him a direct question, he'll give you a direct answer. So he can sit there and say, yeah, we did all the things we needed to do tonight to give ourselves a chance. Did you go to the front of the net and would that have made it better? We didn't. And yes, it would have. And we need to start doing that more often. This was another one of those nights where I mean, maybe this is one of those wake-ups. We were talking last show about the Calgary Flames and how I'm kind of putting them out of my mind because I don't think I've seen from them enough to hold things together this year. Right. And then what do while we're in show? They go out and they destroy the top team in the West by a 7-2 score. And you got to wonder, are those the kind of games that wake a team up? I guess we're going to find out, right? Because Calgary is playing Dallas tonight. If they're able to do it again against Dallas, I'm going to start being a little more concerned about that team. That's something to be concerned about if they're doing that. But this may have been a wake-up moment for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I've said this time and time again, and there's enough evidence, but the Jets tried passing the puck into the back of the net for 2 periods, and then they just decided to start getting the puck to the front of the net and getting dirty, gritty offense, and it worked. It worked for 3 straight goals. That's what they got out of it. So here's the question. What are we going to see from the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow? Before this game, people were saying, what do you think is going to happen today? And I said,
I don't think we're going to see. I don't know.
That's fireworks for the next show.
No, we're not going to see a big save day.
No,
I think we're going to see Connor Hellebuck.
Yes, but people were asking me before this game, what are we going to see from this team? And my response is, I don't know. I don't know enough about how the Winnipeg Jets are responding to know how they're going to respond, right? They don't show enough consistency to me. So that's my biggest question, Ken. Tomorrow when they play the St. Louis Blues, a team that you have said has fallen off the map, is a little bit easier. I'm going to tell you my theory. I think the Winnipeg Jets are still going to win that game, but I think we're going to see a snake charmer game out of them tomorrow night. And I think they'll be able to excuse it by saying, listen, we played last night. It's back-to-back. Let's take it a little bit easier. These guys aren't trying very hard. Hey, I can pass it from this side to that side and back and forth, and it'll go in and they'll win that game. My problem with the Winnipeg Jets doing that is when they fall into that offense, it is hard to break them out of it, and it's the wrong direction to take this team in, or they could take the lesson from what they learned tonight and take away from that third period. This brought us success in a playoff-style game that mattered against a team that needed that win. We won that game because we went hard to the front of the net, got dirty, greasy goals. It seems obvious to me. I just don't know why they seem to recede from that game plan, even when they see it works time and again.
Yeah, for me, I don't anticipate a snake charmer offense type of game because if we do see one, they're maybe going to lose the game. So I think that this is kind of the boost that will allow them to take a deep breath, but also to remember that that's the way they're going to have to play down the stretch. That's the way they're going to have to play down the stretch if they want to make the playoffs.
So hold on. This was a conversation in the room today because we all know the Mall Parises and the Malls of the world who are in here and just viciously, Bic Ronis who are in here. And I said that I've noticed they don't seem to show up when the Jets win. Maybe it's less fun for them. These are the kind of guys I think who pick at scabs. They just can't seem to leave those things alone. And they love picking at the scabs and the cuts and the wounds in the chat room. I'd love to see them there. Guys, come on out. If you're hiding out there, come on out, contribute. Tell us the Jets aren't making the playoffs. We know what you got to say. But anyways, continue on, Kenny.
Oh, it's good. And quick one. Also, Cranley, we need your email.
Got
here.
Got it. I took care of it. It's done.
Oh, like everything, you took care of it.
Yeah. Ask Jeff Kabilis. He sees it.
Yeah, I expect the Jets to play more like they did today. I think this is one of the situations where I think they're finding it was closer to the template again. So and when they find the template, it seems like they're able to stick with it a little bit more. So I'm thinking they're going to play a little bit more of a, I believe the early stage of the game, we may see a little bit of fatigue, but here's the other part, Sean. It's not a true back-to-back. It's afternoon or night game followed by the day game. So no, sold right, fourth line maniac. The attendance full sellout here, 40 plus. So again, shout out to the people who showed up. Another brilliant showing.
Yeah, our third sellout. We're pretty proud of that, and we're really appreciative of everybody here. Now, not everybody stays afterwards. A lot of people come for the game because, to be honest, it's a ton of fun watching the game in this environment. Not everyone stays for the show afterwards. We really appreciate the people who do. I for my liking, they could boo Kenny a little more often than they are, but they're doing a pretty good job of it. That's okay.
Hey, these are Sean. These are smart fans.
Oh, I got a smart ass over here that I'm talking to. I don't know.
Okay, let's on that light, here you go. Why don't you chew on this for a while?
Okay, well, like I as I've said earlier on tonight, I will never stand in the way of someone's right to be wrong. I will never do that. Let's talk about Nick Ehlers, because this is a guy that we know analytically. People will tell you he deserves more of a chance. It drives people nuts because they see what he's capable of doing. It seems like there's always a reason why he's not getting as much ice time. Like I've said this before, once the dominoes fall, they always seem to lead to the idea that Nick Ehlers gets a little less ice time. Right. What did he show you tonight in the moment where he kind of got them back in this game?
No, it was important. And I think this is a guy who's been frustrated. Some of the talk in the room today obviously has been about the East-West type of game, right? And today we saw more of a direct game, Sean. So there have been nights, and Sean, we've seen those nights when Ehlers and Scheifele are on the same page.
Yes.
They can be brilliant.
Yes.
And now you have the wrecking ball and Niederreiter beside them. So I think there's great potential for that line in terms of what they can do and what they can contribute and what they can deliver offensively. Now it's just a matter of how they're going to be committed defensively. I know some folks on social media were naturally up in arms where on the first goal by Winnipegger, Cody Glass, Scheifele's line was on the ice. It wasn't Scheifele's fault, or it was a strange play. It got tipped twice and then Glass found it. But just like the Bruins game, Sean, 3 games in a row now, that line has been on for the first goal against. And for a team that's been struggling to score, they must look at each other on the bench and like, what is happening? I know it's a different configuration, obviously, with Ehlers, but if you're Scheifele and you're Nino, you're thinking like, what is happening here? Why are these strange bounces happening in the goals? But they found a way to get themselves back. They got one back. And there's the other part too. I think, sorry to change gears, but Adam Lowry, another thing he said in his post game after he talked about Todd Woodcroft, Adam was ticked off because they were on the ice right after, like 34 seconds after the Ehlers goal. The checking line, the shutdown line, were on the ice when Nashville went right ahead. The Jets worked so hard to get the game tied, and then they just tossed the lead. Oh, here you go.
Yeah.
Why don't you have it back here?
Yeah.
34 seconds later. So that sort of reinforced the Lowry element. But in terms of Ehlers, I think that we've talked about this a lot, and we know that after my conversation on the side with Ehlers, he did share that he wasn't feeling the best every day. He's trying to fight his way through it. Then Rick Bowness said, oh, well, he's healthy enough or else he wouldn't be playing. So you kind of saw a little bit of a disconnect between the coach's comments and the players' comments. But Ehlers isn't going to be feeling perfect until October probably, but he has a 12-game stretch here where he can get himself up to good enough speed. Like Ehlers at half speed is better than some people at full speed. So I think he's starting to get his legs, and I've liked what I've seen. Are there still some times where he goes backhand sauce or cross ice or sure, but I think Ehlers is the kind of player that can be super impactful for the Jets. And if the Jets want to get into the playoffs and potentially win a round or two, they're going to need Ehlers playing at the top of his game. And right now, I think for both the units in the top 6, Ehlers with Scheifele and Niederreiter makes sense, and Connor with Dubois is going to be their optimal. And then they're going to need Blake Wheeler to turn back the clock a little bit down the stretch here. We know he's working hard and getting some results. I think he's up to 50 points. And if I had told you I know there's been times where Wheeler is not look like the same player than he had a few years ago. If I told you going into the year if Blake was going to have 50 points, I mean, how many people in this room would have said yes?
Wheeler's lost a step. Yeah.
But he's still getting a lot out of what he's bringing. But
I would. This is my thing.
He's working.
This is my thing. Wheeler gets a lot of puck touches on the power plays and secondary assists out of that. Like they do build the system that allows him to get puck touches in good situations that would put him into that. So I'm
just saying 50 points for a 36-year-old is a pretty productive year.
I agree.
Is he playing his best? No, that's
and
not
I don't
want
to take him away from it.
That's not what I'm saying.
Here's what I'd say I'd like to see. I thought that truly, and if you're talking about true, honest offense, at the beginning of the year, Blake Wheeler was going to the front of the net and he was grinding. He was creating a lot of chaos. I don't feel like I've seen Blake Wheeler go to the net for a long time now. And it seems to me that he was, that big body. He's strong. He's got good hands. Like now we were all of a sudden seeing Blake Wheeler starting to score goals again, because Blake Wheeler's never really been a guy who can score goals from distance, but he can capitalize on them on the front of the net. It's gritty. It's tough. It's probably wearing a guy down. Maybe the answer of why he's not doing it anymore is maybe his body's breaking down. Maybe age-wise he's in a position where he's thinking, I'm not going to get through this season unless I alter the way that I play, and I need to play a little bit more of a perimeter of a game. If that's the case, and that's what it's going to take for him to survive, then that's what it takes for him to survive. I just think it should be done with an eye that heading into the playoffs, where I still fully and completely believe the Winnipeg Jets are going, the plan should be for him to get back to that. That's when Blake Wheeler is at his absolute best, is when he's getting to the front of the net. We haven't been seeing that. A return to that would really open things up.
Right. And just one quick one just to finish. I mean, so Wheeler's 15 goals, 50 points. 7 of the 15 are on the power play, 15 of the 50 points. So he still has 35 points at even strength. And of his 15 goals, 6 are game winners. So he still found a way to make an impact.
15 are power play goals?
15 are power play points. Out of
how
50,
many of the remaining
35.
points are empty net points, though?
I'm not sure, but I don't think it's all of them.
Yeah, it's not all of them, but it's Blake Wheeler, I think, is a top 5 all time in percent.
I understand
highest percentage of his points are empty net points. Anyways, I'd said this in the last show. I come into every show with the expectation that I'm going to wear the headband, and then I get into the conversation. I have to correct all the wrong things that Ken's saying all the time. It's a lot of work. It weighs you down. Your mind gets taken in a different direction. But it would be a disservice to Tristan Rivers, who is here tonight, if we did not play Sean's headband and make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. So let's do it.
Cheering, by the way. There's
the cheering. See the fact of the matter is they're not cheering for us. They're cheering for Tristan. That's what it is. And that's the way it should be, because that rocks. Hey, I love the behind the scenes we get to show to people here, because one thing people don't know, that the people here now know, that every time I put the headband on and the song plays, a team of hairdressers and makeup artists comes running in and make me go from what I was before to this. It's really it's where the money from the Kenny and Renny podcast goes, but I think it's well spent, Ken. I think it's dollars well spent, no doubt.
Right, but I'm the diva of the relationship. right. I forgot.
Let's get to Adam Lowry. I love that moment. Ken definitely felt redemption in that moment when Adam Lowry popped that puck in the back of the net. We talked a little bit about what he did there, but just one of the things I find interesting about Adam Lowry is down the stretch here, you can see as they've struggled that it's eating him up. It's like you can see it in his interviews when you talk with him. This is aching for him on the inside. So to have him come out, talk the way that he did and come out and perform the way that he did, step up the way that he did. I mean, one way to ask this is, how right did did Rick Bowness get it with giving him an A? How right did he get it with
yeah.
having Josh Morrissey with the A? But just, I guess maybe a way to turn this to talk about both him and make it back to the letters is the leadership group. What did they show you on this day, Ken?
Yeah, and just a quick one. Todd Woodcroft did text back here. I mentioned to him just now that he was part of the We've Got You covered. He said, haha, nah, not, and vintage Todd, nah, not much help to Adam. Just listened with him. He is a special person. Love him like a brother. Anytime you guys need me, just ask. I watch you guys all the time.
Oh,
Woody, what a beautiful human
Ken,
being.
did you just out your source? Did you just out your source in front of all these people?
No, we were talking about him.
I'm just bugging you. Todd's an A1 human being. Hey, the cool story, a lot of people will have seen this in there, but the year that the Jets went to the playoffs in the Canadian division, Todd Woodcroft came on an episode of Kenny and Renny and spent like an hour with us.
It was amazing.
And basically broke down exactly what ended up happening in that series, how the Winnipeg Jets were going to go and turn, 7 straight losses against the Edmonton Oilers into a series win. And what he said was going to happen is exactly what played out on the ice. And also, we had him on heading into the next series, and it became evidently clear that he was extremely worried about the Montreal Canadiens. And if you remember what everyone in the hockey world thought was going to be happening at that time, the Montreal Canadiens had knocked off the Toronto Maple Leafs. It had gone to 7 games. Everyone thought they would be exhausted. The expectation in the hockey world was that the Winnipeg Jets were going to destroy the Montreal Canadiens. Right. And if you wanted a hint that wasn't going to happen, watching Todd Woodcroft break it down on our podcast was a really good example. This is a smart guy who knows everything about the business, but that we were talking about how much the care level that he has for his players and the connections that are made between players and coaches and men when you have that kind of caring displayed and shown. That was a perfect example of it right there. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Right.
Ken.
And vintage Todd, he didn't help him much. Adam Lowry was 80% in the circle today.
Yes.
After listening.
Yeah.
So love the effort from Lowry. 14 minutes, 33 seconds. So that it's interesting too, Sean. So that line didn't have to play as much today because there's not as much of a matchup game, right? In the last couple of games, they went against Bergeron. They went against Point. They went against Aho. Today, you're going against Duchesne, but it's not like you're going against McDavid and you got to be over the boards every second shift. So
no doubt.
I thought Lowry did a great job in the game. And, it's interesting. I thought that Nemesnikov was a guy who played pretty well on that line. I like him on the checking line. I think, Sean, this is how I would put it. I think there's going to be times where maybe Nemesnikov and Wheeler trade places maybe down the stretch. And I'm not saying it's going to be pertinent, and I'm not saying it's permanent either, because he doesn't have to play on the third line all the time. But maybe there's a few shifts where, if Wheeler doesn't have the legs going that night, maybe Nemesnikov gets the bump up shift. But Lowry's a guy who's going to be important down the stretch here as well. Tomorrow he's going to play against Robert Thomas, Sean. So that's the other reason. So if you only play 14 and a half today, it's a little bit easier to go head to head with that Thomas Kyrou line on Sunday when they're going back to back. So I thought Lowry's been excellent in terms of leadership. We saw him after the last game, talking about the importance of, yes, they played well enough, but this Jets team has sort of planted their flag with moral victories at times in the last 5 years. And with 13 left, Adam's like, no, playing well enough against the Bruins isn't good enough because they need results. And, the folks in the chat room are talking. Today's win in overtime is important because they gain a point on a team that was in hot pursuit.
Right.
But if they don't beat the Blues, today's game doesn't matter, right? They need a clean sweep on the weekend.
No, I disagree with that. I don't agree. And this is what I'd said. And I've had this conversation around the room. I dug into this a little bit. One thing we know is the Nashville Predators have the hardest schedule down the stretch here of any team in the entire NHL. Okay. Sure. So they're 5 points back now, which means whatever the Winnipeg Jets do down the stretch, they need to match. And then they need to win those 3 games in hand. Winning those games is not going to be easy. And I'd said this. Ken, I talked with some of the people in the audience about this, but the Nashville Predators now play, I think it was 13 of their last 16 games were played against teams above the playoff line. Going back to January 26th, how many times have the Nashville Predators beat a team above the playoff line? in basically 6 weeks. It's happened once. Once. This is a team that has been making hay against bad teams, but that, like, my point is, I have, like, honestly, I have zero concern for the Nashville Predators. They're done. It's over. I think it's over for them. It's all about Calgary at this stage, and you got to stay ahead of Calgary because of. But I mean, if Calgary loses here tonight,
Sure,
you're just right back into this
It's 5
situation
points.
where the Jets have a pretty comfortable situation here. Now, are they going to need to start winning? They're going to have, like, they should if Calgary starts winning. But that's the whole thing about this Calgary team. Like I said about the Winnipeg Jets, and I don't necessarily know what to expect from them tomorrow. I have no idea what Calgary is going to do after that 7-2 victory. And I think if we called our colleague Ryan Leslie right now and said, what can we expect from the Calgary Flames tonight? I think that he'd be like, your guess is as good as mine, because we don't. The difference between elite teams, which we talked about the Winnipeg Jets early in the season, were they in that stratosphere? The difference between elite teams and teams that aren't elite is elite teams give you the same thing for the most part every night. What we saw from the Boston Bruins the other night, Boston Bruins fans would tell you, yeah, this is just another carbon copy version of something that we've seen 5, 6, 7, 8 times so far this year. Games just like that. The Winnipeg Jets, we're not sure about that, but the Calgary Flames, I think, are an even less predictable team. At least with the Jets, what we've seen from them the last little while, they're starting to be the team that's the aggressor. They're starting to outshoot their opponent. They're starting to look like they should be getting more goals than they're getting. But at least we're seeing something from them, and what we're seeing from them is positive, and it's growth. I don't know that we've seen that from the Calgary Flames. I've seen them recently lose 2 games to the Arizona Coyotes, right? So I think a win like this tonight. Someone mailed me and said it's going to take 97 points to get into the playoffs. Which of these teams is going to go there? And I was like, I don't know if you've seen these 3 teams. I don't think any of them are getting to 97 points.
Sorry, and my point being that today won't matter if tomorrow is an outright loss. Now that maybe is assuming that Calgary wins, but just don't leave the door open, right?
Well,
there's only 12. This is what I'm saying.
Definitely. And it's what's being said in the back of the room. Keep winning. Like, that's the solution, right? They've given themselves now a buffer. Keep winning and you're in. It's as simple as that. To play some good hockey, get some results, and you're in. If they don't do it, I still think they're going to get in there. Again, my faith on the Jets making the playoffs has less to do with how the Jets are playing and more to do with how their opposition is playing.
Sure. And I just mean, too, because the Jets allowed Nashville to get a point, even though they lost the game in overtime, you still let them hang around, essentially.
Yeah, good point.
That's why I think it's
good point.
There's head-to-heads with both.
I have zero concern for the Nashville Predators.
That's fair. But I mean, that's also what you said going into the game where they needed overtime to beat them.
Good point. Okay, you can tell when there's tension in a room, and these people have been waiting to shout out for Sweet Lou. So why don't you give Sweet Lou his shout out?
Yes, indeed. For your folks who have realty needs that need to be met, whether you're buying, selling, whether you're looking at the house down the corner, maybe looking to change neighborhoods, you can contact our main man Lou Furlan at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. And his email or his website with all his listings, www.loufurlan.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this show, for which we are very grateful.
Love Sweet Lou. He's the man. All right. Let's also give a shout out to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union. If you're a frequent Kenny and Renny show listener, you know that both Ken and I are proud Cambrian members. Something we love is that Cambrian offers free refunded service fees through Unfee. Simply set up a monthly direct deposit like your pay or your pension in your Cambrian checking or savings account, and you automatically get your banking fees refunded on the first day of every month. No minimum amount required. With Cambrian's premium checking account, Unfee will save you $222 every year. Visit cambrian.mb.ca to learn more. And great to have them back. Ken, where do you want to go? How about this? How about we do an audience choice? Someone shout something out and we'll handle that. Any topics that are burning a hole through your minds? Okay. give us an idea of Perfetti, and then we'll handle Dubois to out the show.
Yeah, nothing new in terms of the timeline. I think the original timeline was roughly 8 weeks, so we don't expect him to be back for the Jets before the regular season. And then now you're asking him to come back after missing 8 weeks when the games are going to get incredibly difficult. I think we will see Cole Perfetti back before the year is over, but we'll have to see what's happening in terms of that injury here. I do think he'll play again, but I would not be betting a large amount of money on a mortgage for him to be in game one, is how I would put it. Until we see him back on the ice with the Jets in a non-contact jersey, I wouldn't expect him to be on the ice within 4 or 5 days from then, at the earliest.
You know what? I wish he was coming back more, just because it would make for a fascinating conversation
the debate,
where
sure.
the lines are going to fall.
So, and then
right?
too, so I would just say here, like, I don't know who you put him with, but play him with Blake Wheeler. And I'm not sure who's at center then, but play him with Wheeler. Right or no?
Yes. Yeah. I would think so. I mean, then you could really open up the 3-line scoring debate. That would be absolutely great. But okay,
sure.
So let's move to Pierre-Luc Dubois. We touched on it a little bit, but where do you see him on his road back to being, what he was earlier in the season, a point per game type player, wrecking ball type player, a guy who is keeping the opposition unbalanced because he's getting into their heads. I haven't seen that Pierre-Luc Dubois for a long time. How far could we be away from seeing that?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, today, just under 18 minutes for Dubois, 2 shots on goal. Overall, his game, I think, was all right for a guy who's missed. I think he's missed 9 of 10. So, like, that's a big chunk of time to be missing going into this time of year. The Jets need him to be an impactful player. That's the other thing. So he was an impactful player in terms of his play late in the game, getting the breakaway and then setting up the winner. But I don't think this was a vintage Pierre-Luc Dubois game today. And it's tough to expect that when he's missed so much time. But I do think he'll need to be for the Jets to be in and to make an impact, he needs to be an impactful player. That means drawing penalties. That means getting under the skin of the opposition. And that means being that net front presence on the Jets power play, which has gone pretty much ice cold. And Rick was asked by Jeff Hamilton at the end of the scrum today about the power play. And he basically said, we don't shoot enough. So that means that they need to unload a little bit more and get some more traffic. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know how long it's going to take, Sean, but I would expect that, by the California trip, Dubois has got to be, rolling on all cylinders in terms of getting his impactful game rolling.
The one thing that I think when it comes to Pierre-Luc Dubois, and there's just so many guys on this team that don't look like what we usually see them looking like, right? Sure. Like Kyle Connor's a guy who he went on a bit of a point streak, and we saw him contribute, but Kyle Connor doesn't look like what Kyle Connor looks like when he's at the top of his game. Pierre-Luc Dubois is another guy who doesn't look like what he looks like when he's at the top of his game. Nick Ehlers is a guy who hasn't looked like that for some time. If you agree with my theory on Wheeler and being a net front guy at this stage, he hasn't looked like he's looked at the top of his game. It's interesting because what I'm seeing is a team structure that is coming together, that the Jets are having a little bit more success as of late, coming out with 2 points tonight. I'm still not seeing guys look like are you okay, Donnie? Okay. All right. I haven't seen the Jets players look like themselves within that structure. So anyway, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing that happen with this team. It's been a good stretch here, and that they're starting to contribute some points. They've looked like they've been in games. They need to start taking those look like they've been in games and start turning them into definitive wins. And I think we start talking about the playoffs a little bit early here. Ken, anything to say before we shut this down?
No, just another great day, and we appreciate everybody being down here. It's been an awesome time, and we appreciate you celebrating with us. And I know that the folks that tuned in to the hockey night in Canada know that I got a little bit emotional about my mother, and it would have been my late mother's birthday today. So March 18th, always a special day here as well. So
I love it when you share that kind of stuff, Ken. I love sharing the time that we do with all of you who came down here. I really appreciate it. It means a ton to us. We love being able to see and chat with Kenny and Renny. People, I know a lot of you message me quite often. I love it. Keep it coming. I love having these conversations. That's why I love these events, because I love being able to talk in person with everybody here. Love being able to do it with everyone in the chat room. It's great. And Ken, I love being able to chat with you as much as we do. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Ken and I spend all our time doing this away, and we fight a lot less when you people aren't involved. It really is your fault. It's your fault. Ken and I usually get along great. It's the chat room and it's the live audience that really put us at each other's throats. But we've got a strong enough relationship that we are going to survive it. We'll be just fine. So thank you, everybody. And as I always do, I want to end this by saying thank you to our sponsors. If you appreciate the conversations that happen in these spaces, please appreciate the contributions made by our sponsors. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing Company, Home Field, Lou Ferlin, the Johnson Group, and Cambrian Credit Union. And a real thanks to the people at TransCanada Brewing, who have just been such phenomenal partners for us. We love spending our time down here. They satisfy my need to come here and talk hockey, because I come here and we talk hockey all the time. It's great. Can't wait to do it again next week. One last time, I'll throw this up for our last live show of the season. If you want tickets, here's the QR code. Scan for that, people, before you leave the room. If you have any interest in coming next week, you've got a QR code right up at the bar that you can hit. One last time, we're going to do this, but before that, we've got a few games we've got to take care of, including tomorrow against the St. Louis Blues. It's going to be a big one. We'd love it if you join us and we can break it down and do it all over again. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Home Field, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferlin, TransCanada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.